Hello again. Maybe wondering why I'm sitting in my house, why I have two computers going, and also using my phone as a calculator. It's because today I'm designing a pipe. I've used a few different pieces of software over the years to try and design pipes. A bunch of free ones that were kind of junky. This one is also free, but this one is special. We'll talk about that in a second. I don't have any fancy software like TSR or Ingmod 2T, so I mostly just use calculators I can find on the net. But yeah, I figured I'd take you guys through a rundown of designing a pipe, and then also using cone layout to actually lay the pipe out properly versus making a giant cone and cutting it up, where you actually start losing length because of the cuts and all of that. So yeah, let's jump right in, and we'll cover making a pipe from scratch. So you are going to need to know a few things. First thing you're going to need to know is your exhaust timing. So mine, I calculated out. You will need to do some sort of port timing with a degree wheel or something of that sort. But you'll need to know your exhaust, the duration of your exhaust timing. So once you have that, you'll also need to know the area of the exhaust port. So that is the calculation of this total area of the exhaust port. Oh, nag box, get out of here. Cone layout is free, but it also continually nags you when you leave it open. You'll also need to know the area of the exhaust port. The easiest way to do that would be to do a rubbing of the cylinder. Put a piece of paper in, tape it to the cylinder, take like a stick or a handle of some sort, rub it inside the bore, and it'll leave like a trace mark around the port, and you can take it out, do measurements off of it, figure out what the area of it is. The calculator requires that as well. And then you need the exhaust length. The length is calculated from my understanding in the Excel spreadsheet that I have here. It's calculated from the center point of the piston here to the end of the exhaust. So you'll need to, get a tape or something and measure that as well. Center point of piston all the way out to the end of the cylinder where the exhaust comes out. I don't think I have another. But yeah, like the exit of the exhaust port. Essentially, you need to know the length from there to there. So once you've done that basic stuff, so for mine, my bore is 52.5. The stroke is 45.6 millimeters. That gives me a 98.7 cc displacement. I'm shooting for around 12,000 RPM. My duration was 198. I have a single exhaust port. It's not a split. My exhaust port area works out to be about 800 millimeters squared. And the length of the cylinder from the center of the piston to the exit flange is 80 millimeters. Exhaust gas temp, this is something you can play around with. That's basically the heat inside the pipe. That can move the power band up or down, make it more peaky, make it more punchy in the mid. So the calculator starts out at 550, but you can move that up or down. You make a pipe, you find it doesn't work, do what you want. You can try moving it up or down and see what works for you. And then horsepower. So I put 25. We'll see how that goes. First, let's cover where to get this. So if you are not familiar with the ESE thread on Kiwi Biker, I would recommend going there if you have a lot of time on your hands. As you can see, there are a lot of posts well over 2,000 pages of posts by a bunch of very smart guys. Like, I don't even post on here. I feel completely out of place. I just try and come here and read and absorb everything that I can, because there are some like fantastically smart people in here. Lots of links to things to read, but a few of the key guys of interest on here are Fritz Overmars, Wobbly, Wayne Wobbly Wright, and this Janbros guy who actually made this Excel spreadsheet. There's many other smart people in there. No, I'm not going to get into them all and start like naming them off, but again, the knowledge in there is far surpasses my own. I try to go in there and act like a sponge, but that's where I acquired this spreadsheet. It is a free download on there. This one actually, so there's a few on the web. I mean, if you go to Google and you search Fritz Overmars exhaust, it'll come up with one in particular. Let's bring it up here. So FOSpipe. So yeah, it brings you up to this Underdogs Racing FOSpipe calculator. So this actually uses a bunch of old dated information to do the calculations, and Fritz in that ESE thread has actually mentioned it, saying that it's not correct. I mean, it'll spit you out a pipe that's kind of close, I guess, but it's not the correct information. So I would only use the one. I'll provide a link to the spreadsheet down at the bottom of in the description, and download that one and use one. You do need Excel to make it work, and it doesn't work in OpenOffice. It doesn't work in Excel Online. It only works with like a Microsoft Excel. You can see if you open it in Excel Online, some of this stuff will work. You'll be able to get a calculation, but you won't have these sliders or these check boxes here that allow you to like enable certain things. So yeah, and you can't like adjust the graph, etc., etc. But I mean, it will spit out numbers here along the side that you can use. So that's something to take into consideration. You can use it in Excel Online for free, but it doesn't have all of the features enabled like it should, because you can actually like adjust the header lengths and belly lengths and stuff to suit certain sizes, and it will move it around and play around with some of the settings in like a automatic sort of way, so it'll adjust everything around. So looking at the software, we'll go over the input data. So this is what you need to enter. Anything green is something you can enable. So you can enable a wobbly duct, which I'm still trying to learn about a little bit, but so I'm not going to get into that. But over here in the input data, you have bore 52.5, stroke 45.6, RPM 12 grand. Exhaust port duration for me is 198 degrees. I have a single exhaust port. My exhaust port area works out to be about 800 millimeters squared. The length of the cylinder from the center point out is 80 millimeters, and I would be happy with 25 horsepower at the wheel. So what that spits out here, I'm going to be using a 3-stage diffuser. It gives me, so it gives me this pipe. It shows it down here on this graph. So this first bracket here is actually the L cylinder. So watch, if I change L cylinder to say 40, enter, it gets shorter down here. So that one is graphically just showing the length of the cylinder, and that blue line I believe is half of the piston diameter. Starting here is D1. This is D1 header, D2 header, and then we start into diffuser, D1 diffuser, D2 diffuser, D3 diffuser / belly. Then we have the belly, and then we go down to the baffle 1, which is the start, also the exit of the belly, and then baffle 2, and then stinger. So with all of those known, it shows you up here all of those numbers: D1, D1 header, D2, diffuser, 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 belly, and then baffle, baffle, stinger. It also gives you the lengths of each one of those. So length of cylinder here, length of header 1, which is this length, header 2, this length here, diffuser 1, diffuser 2, diffuser 3, belly, baffle 1, and baffle 2. All of that works out over here to show you the total length, and then there's all your lengths for all your baffles. It also gives you the degrees and angles from center line, so that's like 1/2 of the angle if you were to look at it as like a complete angle. And percentages as well, which you can play around with. That's like percentage of the pipe length. Down here at the bottom, there is a thing that kind of explains the wobbly exhaust port a little bit. It gives you a graphical representation of the calculations used and some explanations to how to use the software. And like I said, you can enable and disable graphically other things, so it'll overlay pipes on top of other pipes. And you can auto adjust the graph once you make big changes and stuff gets out at a scale. So for me, we're just going to do a simple, ordinary, nothing fancy, well, 3-stage diffuser pipe. Once you have this installed, you're going to need to install a piece of software called Cone Layout. So this is the software you want to get. Cone Layout has a 21-day trial. You can download it for free and use it. Pops up and looks something like this. This is where having either 2 screens or a big screen, this is the reason why I have 2 computers open right now, helps, because you can have the Excel spreadsheet open. You do have to do a bunch of math to it to make it kind of work. Most exhausts need a bend to them, so if a lot of people will make a single cone and then cut it into sections, but every time you make a cut, you're shortening the pipe by that amount. Plus, as you put slight angles to it, the center line of the pipe gets broken up, so the pieces get a little bit out of whack. Maybe not enough to make a huge difference, but if you want to do it the right way, you calculate it out with the angles already included, and it spits out these weird shapes that you then roll into a shape, and it's your center line of the pipe stays consistent. You're not losing like a 1/16 of a material every time you make a cut. I mean, if you put like 10 cuts in there, you might lose a substantial amount of pipe overall, and in critical areas. So something to kind of be aware of. I've done it a bunch, but it's not ideal. So let's put some real numbers in here. So if we go back to the spreadsheet for a second and look at the So starting at D1, we have 35.4, header 1, 35.4. That's the exit entrance of the header. That's also like would be the number you'd be shooting for your exit at the exhaust port. Let's go. You have to do a little bit of math here because this is just giving you a length from here to here, but we need to put bends in it. So a lot of the time, like a 6.5 degree bend per section, like, and you want most of them, you need to move them like anywhere is in between 90 to like 180 degrees backwards, sometimes more. So you need to start putting cuts. Now you obviously don't want to put cuts in that are super aggressive because that the more bend you have to the exhaust, ideally you want the thing to be just a straight line. So about a 6.5 degree angle per cut per side. So you're doing almost like 13 degrees per pie per section of cut. So you start by going 35.4, which is the D1 size. It's the start of the pipe, into the header one end, which is the end of the header 1 section. So you go, bad math I know here, but minus 40.6, and that equals 5.2. Now we have to look at the length down here. It's 99.2. Just to make mine simple, I'm going to say I want my pieces to be approximately 30 millimeters long. So to get that 30-ish millimeters, I'll fudge it like by the whatever the 3 millimeters or whatever extra it's going to be for each one. We want to divide that into 3 basically. That 99.2 length into 3 will give us about 30 millimeters per. Again, crude, it doesn't have to be perfect. So divide that into 3. And we get a number here. It's obviously positive, but just because I had a negative in the equation there. So 1.733333. So we'll just round it to 1.73. So that means every section will increase in diameter by 1.73. So keep that in mind. So let's go back over to cone layout. So in here in diameter 1, let's put in our 35.4 millimeter diameter. And then the angle 6.5 degrees on one end. Then for diameter 2, we want 37.13 in diameter. And then the length of the thing, so over here in this calculator, we'll do that. So like I mentioned earlier, we know that L1 is 99.2. So let's clear this, 99.2. And then we're going to do 3 sections to get that into about 30 millimeters. Divide that into 3. So we got 33.06666. So I'm just going to 33.7 every time. So length 33.7. And there's our first piece. So and that's the flat pattern projection it spits out for us. So what you want to do now is export. If you're going to get your thing like lasered or water jet or whatever cut out, you need to start saving these in like a tangible manner. So I've made a new folder called exhaust. What you're going to do here is start with D1-1, knowing that's D1 is the header. Actually, we'll put D1H just so we know. Header and that's the first piece in that section, because it's going to get really confusing. There's going to be multiple pieces we're going to end up with. So D1H-1, so we save that. Now if you were doing the page, if you were going to print them out and you weren't going to get them water jetted, you would go to print, select your printer. So if you're going to print it, like if you're going to cut it out with a bandsaw or a hacksaw or cut-off wheel or whatever, you can get it to print it out, and this is what it'll spit out for you. Just on a piece of paper, gives you a basic cutout. You cut this out, trace it, do whatever. Just check and make sure that your scaling is right. So just measure across here. You know, it should be a certain size. Just kind of make sure before you start spending a lot of effort cutting it out that you're actually getting the pieces that are around the right size that you're looking for. But that's another method that you can do. So now for the next piece, we know again that we want to increase it by 1.73. So we take our lower diameter down here and add it to the top. So we go 3.7 or 3.37.1, and then we want to add 1.73 to that, and that gives us 38.6, and everything stays the same. So we now have a new piece. So again, if you're going to print, you print it or you export it, and then we say D1H-2, and we save that one. And we go again. So we move the bottom number up to the top, 38.6. And since this is our third piece, we should end up with our final diameter of 40.6. And we have another section again. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is you want this to be a negative 6.5 in the angle here, and the angles. So the angle 6.5. You can do tighter, you can do less. I mean, there's nothing dictating that you have to do exactly what I'm doing. But what this does is makes it so that the the inside piece is short, and that the angles are both facing towards the inside of the piece. If you do it the other way, the angle points the other direction. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to do like a pie cut section. But yeah, so let's save this one as D1H-3. So once we have that done, going back again to the calculator, or the Excel spreadsheet, we're moving up. So we're going to do D2, which is the header section, piece number 2. So we have to go from 40.6 to 48.7. So again, with the calculator, we clear this, we go 40.6 48.7. So that's an 8.1 difference, and that section is also about 90-ish millimeters. So we can divide that one by 3 as well. Divide it into 3, and that gives us a 2.8 2.7 millimeter diameter for every section for that we do. So if we want to divide it into 3 different sections. So same deal. We'll jump back over to cone layout here, and same deal. So the length of that one was 92.3, and we want to divide that into 3, and that's 30.7 every time. And there's that egg box. So 30.7 every time. So once again, we're going to put the small number in the top, so 40.6, and then we want to add 2.7 to that. So that's 43.3. And then we want to save that one. So this one we are going to do D2 H dash 1. So basically you can see the designations here: diameter 2, header section, part number 1. So we're starting another section here. You can name them however you want, but this will just keep it much less confusing. So then we move this one up again, 43.3, and plus 2.7. We're going to get 46 on the button. D2 H-2. So this just kind of gives you a rough idea on how you can do this. This is just a pipe for my RS-100, but if you have the numbers that you need, you can play around with it. This just kind of gets you rolling and shows you a decent way to make a pipe. So that's just a free calculator I have on my phone that spit out a pipe. Most of the free pipe calculators give you like some crazy stuff. I would trust this spreadsheet over pretty much anyone because it's straight from the source. But I would, I wouldn't really use any of those other free calculators online. But yeah, that's my quick and dirty 2-stroke pipe, like how I would do it, or how it's easy to play around with. Everything's basically free other than Microsoft Excel, but if you have Office, then you're laughing. But yeah, play around with it, have fun, make a few pipes, because you probably will anyway. So yeah, that's it. So afterthought, just adding this in as well. You're going to need to know how much angle you have. So there's going to come a point where maybe you need to, like the last cone piece you make, you may not need as much angle on it to get your exhaust to be where you want it. So one thing you can do as well is take these, cut them out, and tape them all together. You can basically make the entire exhaust out of paper and just put it on the bike and see if it fits. So that's why these paper templates can be pretty good. So that's just something to think about as well. Instead of cutting it all out and realizing that it doesn't fit, your angles are off, or you need more or less angle, Yeah, just cut these out, tape them up, make a whole paper exhaust, put it on the bike, try it out, see what works.